Hey guys, the first step to generating voxel terrain and then creating a shader and then painting on it, for me at least, is to create a new world. We need to access the terrain page. I'll select the terrain block and zoom out of the top viewport. I'm going to create a fairly expansive terrain. I'm importing a height map, which lies rest in the import directory. The higher the resolution, the longer it'll take to generate the terrain, and I believe in my case this is a 128 by 128 resolution TGA file, but it doesn't take too long to generate, so that's good news. I believe the height scale, its influence on the terrain is proportional to the volume of the terrain block, so it takes a little bit of experimentation to get the vibe for what that value needs to be, but it doesn't take too long to zero in. I wish there was maybe a mini preview here that you could see what it would typically look like, but we don't have that yet. So build, see, really quick, at least for me. There's a lot of unneeded vertices in the generation process, and so the easiest way to optimize is by selecting all the geometries here, which you can do so by selecting the root node, the hierarchy, holding Control and down on the keyboard, selects it all. There's this expansive list here, optimized terrain geometry, and now just reduced the vertice count, which not only reduces the memory footprint and disk footprint to the voxels, but also saves you some render time, which is always nice to have. You can see in the perspective viewport, it's pure white. This is because lighting is disabled and the ambient light is pure white. So I'm going to toggle lighting and add a little blue to simulate a clear blue sky day, sunny in Philadelphia. Okay, let's pull some lights in as well. I'll use a landscape light, it's a bit fitting. Angle it so we can get some nice shadows. You can see the lighting is a bit too harsh, it's blown out here. Hopefully when a more linear based approach to lighting is implemented, there's less fiddling in this regard. But pure white anyway is pretty bright anyway. So I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to give the vibe that this is the sun. And I'm going to tighten up the shadow maps here so I'll do something kind of insane, because I am kind of insane. There we go, we got some nice shadows, some more natural lighting. Although we have some banding, but that's just because my numbers are insane. Anyway, that's a little unimportant. What is important though is our shader. Here's our default material. Just modify that to terrain. Edit the shader. I'm in 3.0. If you're in a previous version, you'll have these two tabs. At the top left portion of the workspace for the shader editor, which will be labeled ambient and shader. The procedure you follow is much like the one I will be following, but instead, in both of the graphs, select all the nodes and delete them. And in your ambient shader, place down a terrain texture and select a terrain palette and connect it to the ambient reflection output. In your light shader, what we need is a constant color, constant scalar, scale, linear. I haven't really figured out how to say that properly. We'll need a multiply add, and the terrain, diffuse, and specular reflection nodes. So first we need to calculate the diffuse color, which and the lighting color, right? So to do that, we multiply the diffuse color by the diffuse reflection value. But then we also need to add the specular reflection on top. And that process is as below. Bringing in this to clamp down the values. Specularity is hardly ever pure white, especially with the surfaces we're dealing with. I'll do something like 10, and we can add this right to the light reflection output. Even still, it's still too bright. This isn't really a tutorial on shaders in of themselves. This is just more a step-by-step instructional on just how to create a terrain shader. You can see the specular highlights are pretty tight, and bringing this down to 1 is basically no tightness at all. 100, very, very tight. And that's basically what it is. Pretty straightforward. We're going to close and save. And since we modified the default material, which was pre-applied to the terrain when we created it, it automatically pre-applied it. It automatically updated, rather, with our terrain material. So that kind of saved us this step. And you can see it's respecting the light values, the shadows, and all that, because that's what the shader is built for. Okay, next step is to paint. Pretty straightforward. This plane setting tells the brush how to interact with the terrain geometry. I'm going to follow the surface. It seems to be the most natural for me. If you have a stylus, you can enable that here. I'm going to start with the primary blend brush, which is the top row. Actually, no, let's do the back, the secondary. And I'll change this to a rock. Doesn't really matter what yours is. I always update the texture as well. And you can see I left click and paint away, and there we go. No big deal. And that's painting the voxel terrain in C4 version 3.0.